Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it was actually instituted right after slavery in order for, the white landowners to continue to benefit off of, the enslaved Africans who were emancipated, who had rightfully gotten their freedom. And it even beyond like those areas where they were essentially working for free, where people were working for just, change, essentially, there were ways to kind of terrorize people into not leaving or not demand certain things. So it was really rough. It was a really rough experience and environment.
And I like, there's a line, I forget which song it's in, where you talk about going from sharecropping farms to Reaganomics.
And that line was just to kind of tie in, my father's experience with my own, just to kind of show that there were things that have kind of changed form in this country, but the underlying issue, the inequity for Black people in this country hasn't changed.
Exactly. I mean, even with the marijuana laws, I mean, it's like now white corporate people are going into the business of marijuana, and there's still people, minorities, who are imprisoned.
Absolutely. And the fact that we have to demand that these sentences get vacated or people are released if they're nonviolent marijuana offenses, while people are making billions off of them. And more states are expanding or getting into the marijuana industry. It is infuriating, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. In light of the current political situation, do you think that America is in a worse place now than ever, or in a better place, or is there hope?
I definitely feel like there's hope, because I think that we are positioned now where there's like a new generation of young people who they have a sense of ownership for the future. I think with the world opening up with like technology and stuff, I think that people can envision more things for themselves, because like industries have become a little bit more non-traditional. There have been more ways for people to become self-made entrepreneurs just online and stuff like that. So there's a whole generation of people who are unafraid about making demands and unafraid about expressing, their disapproval of the way the country is running and using their voice and getting out there. And like, there's always been protests and stuff, but I think that we've definitely reached a breaking point in which people are demanding, like, we need to see something different. And we're starting to demand and kind of push policymakers and change makers a little bit harder in terms of representing the people.
Yeah. And in terms of hip hop, your album is out there, and there's a lot of other people putting out albums and also, individual tracks that are definitely protest music. And it seems to me, I mean, 4 years ago, I expected a sort of a renaissance in revolutionary hip hop. But in the past year, I've noticed an uptick, like an awful lot of more sort of revolutionary hip hop music being made. What is your take on that?
Right. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think the administration of the president, who hopefully will get on out of that White House soon, I think that kind of like put the fuel under a lot of people who weren't concerned with, these issues. Where we're starting to see the effects of what this type of administration was doing, how people were responding to it, how his base was becoming more emboldened to, I think espouse some of the ideas that, they didn't get to experience. Their parents had experienced, or their grandparents had experienced these, this kind of racist ideology. And while a lot of people knew that this was still in existence, just a lot more covert, hearing people kind of revitalize that, it kind of spurred a lot of people into action, especially artists. People started more openly talking about injustices, and then a lot of what happened this year, there's just too many pressing issues for people to ignore. So a lot of people just kind of got to working,
Now, with the album, The Sharecropper's Daughter, in the recording of it, Soul Messiah, I thought, did an amazing job. And I was curious how you put it together, like say with like such guests as say Saul Williams, when you collaborated with him, was everything done like everyone was in their own studio, and then you talked about things on the phone, and then you each did your individual parts, and then Soul Messiah put it all together, or how was the process?
Right. It happened like that for everybody except Black Thought. So basically, we identified the people we wanted to use. And then I would give them an idea of what I was trying to do. Like, this is what the project is. This is what I'm trying to convey and express through this song. And with the Saul track, I don't think I had done my part yet. I just told him what I was trying to express through this intro and what the album was all about. And he created something, and then I added on to it. And then Messiah, added like the additional elements to the song. With Lettucey, for example, I had written the part that I wanted her to sing, and I had done like a demo version of that. And then I spoke to her on the phone and just kind of explained what it was, it being the title track and what needed to come through with that, So it was the same for everybody. I actually didn't talk to Styles about what I wanted in terms of, and what I wanted from him. I kind of trusted, like, okay, do what you do. But because I have my verse already there. My verse was already there. So he had that to use as a guide. So yeah. And then Black Thought was the only person that we actually went into the studio with, and we kind of vibed off of one another.
That track is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So obviously COVID had a lot to do with that, but not always, because in the digital age, we don't have to be in the same studio as someone else.
Yeah.
So as an artist, as a hip hop artist, how did COVID affect you, or is it affecting you now?
I think from its start, from its emergence, like I was actually on tour when it started I was on tour with Rhapsody at the beginning of the year, and it was almost like we were running from it at one point. Like every time we would leave a state, we would hear that an outbreak had happened. My shows that I had set up, because I had some additional shows set up during like our downtime on the show, like things were being canceled. Like I had a Seattle show that was canceled after our show, after my Seattle show on the tour with Rhapsody. And we ended up being able to do the tour except all the shows except for one date. And we were in a sense in our own little bubble, because we're constantly working, we're preparing for the show, whatever. So the severity of it didn't really hit us until that last show got canceled. And we're like, oh, okay, this is really real. Like they're shutting down whole, states, And I had a tour lined up for Europe that was supposed to happen like literally 7 days after I got home from the Rhapsody tour. And that got canceled, and like several other like festivals and shows and stuff I had lined up throughout the summer. So all of that just got canceled. And it's really jarring, when that is your world, that is, that's your security, your financial security, that's your world, that's part of like what, that's part of your schedule, like such an integral part of your schedule, just the touring. And for that to just abruptly stop in the midst of something so concerning that was happening in the world, it kind of threw me off, like pretty profoundly. And, myself, along with a lot of other people, we were afraid. We were, at not only what this was, but like just the uncertainty of our lives, going forward. And I saw like a lot of people just like recovering really quickly, like on Instagram, and like, figuring out how to pivot and figuring out how to capitalize off of, everybody being in the house doing IG lives. And for me, like initially I felt like, oh, I've dropped the ball here. Like I'm supposed to like get into action. But I realized like, no, this is me like stopping and taking a moment to really consider the weight of what is happening in my place in what is happening. And so I allowed myself to take some time off and, just kind of connect with not only myself, but the folks around me, and just really figure out what my track was going to be in terms of, because the album hadn't released yet, but like in terms of like what was going to happen now, how I was going to promote now, like all of these things. So we had to really like change that whole direction.
And did it delay the release of the album? Was the album supposed to be released initially earlier in the year by Rhymesayers?
That was the goal, but because we have Wax, so like it ended up not happening in time to get, the Wax, I guess printed or pressed or whatever. I don't know the terminology.
Yeah.
For that to happen. So yeah, then we pushed it to October. But it wasn't because of COVID.
Well, you mentioned that you're out on tour with Rhapsody. I didn't know about that. What an amazing tour that would have been. I really love her too. I just think she's
Yes.
incredible. And her album, Eve, was one of my favorite albums from last year. But do you think that things are equal with female artists, or you think it's, as I do, pretty unequal ratio?
Yeah, it's definitely uneven. It's definitely uneven. I think there is a dominant group in hip hop, and that is men for sure. And we've had to struggle to get our voices heard, especially within the mainstream, but even more so in underground, because people have to actively look for, underground independent artists. So it's even harder there. But there is something to be said, because it's kind of like this divide between like women rappers or women MCs that women listen to, and then there are those that both, like, women and men can listen to or do listen to. And even that is interesting in and of itself, because even on my journey in this career, I saw a lot of bias from like male listeners. I would, obsessively read these blog comments and stuff, and guys would just be like, oh, I don't like female rappers. I don't even have to listen to it. I know it's whack. I don't like women rappers. So like, even having to fight past that barrier of this kind of intolerant view of what women who rap, of women MCs and women rappers and stuff. So that's my big thing. Like, I always try to tell people, like, y'all, it's not even that challenging to search and find it, because I can like name 10 women right now easily. I can rattle them off. Who
Go
are
ahead. Name. No, I'm curious, because I'm always looking for new artists.
Okay, Dynasty, Lyric Jones, Akua Naru, Blinds and Gab. Those are 2 women. There's Che Noir, Star, who else? Boog Brown, absolutely Boog Brown. We're not doing Rhapsody because we already know. We know Rhapsody. Chica, yeah, Little Sims, Starlight. There's Reverie. There's Gavlin. There's what's her name? Out of Yugen Blackrock. There is Sampa. There's so many, and you just have to do a search. The same way, the general listening public will like find these obscure male rappers who have like buzz, like some online buzz, or maybe not an online buzz yet, but they have like this cult following. Do that for women. Like, make that effort for women, because there's so many women out here who are just exceptionally dope. Ryan Nicole, just so many. Oh, Moo Fresh. Sorry. Yeah.
I know that you're brushed for time, so I just want to ask you one last question, and that is, what do you have planned for the future? Obviously, you can't have any concrete tour plans, but what is going to be 2021 for you?
Working on a new album. Yeah, like, we've already started working on another album. We're figuring out this new terrain in terms of shows, figuring out creative ways in which we can put on shows that are, adhere to social distancing and stuff like that. And, but mainly just working on the music. I really, like you said, like, the albums are like your baby. But now that the baby is out in the world, it's like, okay, I want a new baby. I have so much more to say. I have so many more things that didn't make it on this album. And I'm now in a new direction with what I want to do. And so let's get back to work.
I love it, because there was a long wait for this album, but it was definitely worth the wait.
Yeah. Now I'm like charged up. Before, like, I was just trying to figure out like exactly, there was a lot of kind of pressure, because I'm like, there's a brand new audience that I'm now exposed to who don't know who I am. So like, how best to highlight like who I am as an artist within an album. So now that I've done that, now I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to just do my thing. Y'all have been introduced. Now, here we go.